It's time once again to play with the NHL Draft Lottery Simulator to see who might have the best shot and actually land the first overall pick to get Connor Bedard in their organization. We'll discuss that, simulate the lottery, and do a top 10 mock draft coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned today, we're once again going to have a little fun with the NHL Draft Lottery Simulator tool, courtesy of Tankathon.com. So in a moment, we're going to jump onto the computer, go onto their website, and do a simulation for the draft lottery to see who will be fortunate enough to win the first overall pick and get the rights to Connor Bedard, who appears to be one of the best players to come out of the draft, one of the best first overall picks in quite some time. In my estimation, he's going to be the best first overall pick since Connor McDavid, possibly. Might rival a guy like Austin Matthews as well. I think he's going to have that much of an impact and be that good. Maybe even better, who knows? We'll have to see once he makes the jump. Of course, this is all just projections based on what we've seen so far in junior. He's had a heck of a regular season with the Regina Pats. And so far, they're in the playoffs, upsetting the higher-ranked team in Saskatoon in the playoffs. And he's putting on quite a show. So the last few times we've done this, which has been, I think, 5 so far since the early part of the season. We did one in November, December, January, a couple so far in the spring. So far, we've had 2 victories for the Philadelphia Flyers in the draft lottery. We've also seen 2 victories for the Anaheim Ducks and 1 for the Montreal Canadiens. So will we see another repeat of one of those teams? Could it be somebody different? We'll see what the website spits out for us. So now we're going to jump onto the website, complete that simulation, and then once that's complete, I'll follow that up with my top 10 picks, depending on how those selections actually fall. We'll discuss that and go from there. So let's jump on the computer and simulate this draft. Okay, so as you can see, we're now on the Tankathon.com website. Here is all the teams in reverse order. Of course, the lowest ranked team in the NHL right now is Chicago. So they have the best odds in order to get first overall. So let's jump over to the pick odds screen just for a sec here. As you can see, the odds here as well. So Chicago has a 25.5% chance of winning. They also have an 18.8% chance of finishing second, but a 55.7% chance of finishing third, which means they wouldn't win either of the top 2 picks and would fall down in the lottery. That's typically how these goes. Obviously, some teams have better odds of winning, but at the end of the day, they all have worse odds of not winning. So that's just the way she goes. But right now, Chicago's at the best odds, followed by Anaheim, Columbus, San Jose, Montreal, Arizona, Philadelphia, Vancouver, Washington, St. Louis, and Detroit. They're the only teams that are eligible for that first overall selection, because you can only move up a maximum of 10 spots. So those are your teams right now actually in the running. Ottawa, Buffalo, Florida, Nashville, and Calgary also in the lottery. But if they win, they can move up 10 spots but not get all the way to number 1. Take a look here at the actual lottery, and we'll simulate things to see where things go. As you can see, teams like Chicago and Anaheim clearly seem to be tanking. They're both on 8-game losing streaks. The Coyotes are on a 7-game losing streak. So certainly the race to the bottom for Bedard, as they say, is a real thing that's been going on in the NHL. And which of these teams are going to be fortunate enough to land the franchise-altering player? Let's hit the simulate lottery button and find out. Oh, there we have it. We have 2 Canadian teams with the lottery. The Vancouver Canucks win the lottery and have a chance to draft their hometown sensation here in Connor Bedard. And Montreal wins the other lottery spot, moving up 3 spots to number 2. So our draft order here will be as follows. You have Vancouver, Montreal, Chicago, Anaheim, Columbus, San Jose, Arizona, Philly, Washington, and St. Louis will comprise your top 10. So those are your top 10 order. We'll now jump into the mock draft section of the video, where I will make my selections for what I think each team is going to select. Selecting first overall, we have the Vancouver Canucks, and there's no doubt they'll be taking Connor Bedard. He's 100% going first overall, no doubt about it. He had a ridiculous draft year in Regina in the WHL. Bedard's listed as 5'10", 185, put up a ridiculous 71 goals and 72 assists for 143 points, while also having a really record-setting World Junior Championship tournament for Team Canada as well. Has already got up to a hot start with a really solid playoff performance in the first couple games here for Regina in the WHL playoffs, as they're the underdogs, but they're winning 2 games to nothing. Bedard's going to be a franchise player with a wicked shot, going to be able to do a lot of things. In my opinion, will have an immediate impact as a rookie and will be as impactful as we've seen guys like McDavid and Matthews in their first season. There's no doubt he would be a major pickup here for Vancouver or any other team fortunate enough to draft him. Next up, winning the lottery for the number 2 spot, the Montreal Canadiens. There's no doubt, again, they'll take the number 2 drafted prospect here, rated prospect, Adam Fantilli of the University of Michigan. Had a huge year in the NCAA, putting up 64 points, including 29 goals in 35 games. Had a little bit of a slow start, but finished strong for Team Canada, the World Juniors as well, putting up 5 points in 7 games and actually carved himself out a nice role. Fantilli, in this case, is going to be maybe not the same level of Bedard, but he is going to be a legit top 6, likely a number 1 center. Montreal could still benefit from this for sure. There's no doubt he would be the selection here. For the Habs, I mean, they have some other options down the middle, like Nick Suzuki. They're rumored to be in the mix for Pierre-Luc Dubois, but you can never have enough of these guys. There's no guarantee. They'll all play center long-term, and if they become a winger or whatever, or a trade prospect, either way, Fantilli's a fantastic piece that could be a huge help here for Montreal in the rebuild. At number 3, we have the Chicago Blackhawks, who currently have the best odds of winning the pick, and I have them taking Russian-born player Matvei Michkov. Now, Michkov's a player who's a controversial pick because we know he's going to stay in Russia for at least a couple more seasons. How long they'll have to wait for him to come, it's difficult to say, but there were points in his young career in the last 2 years where he was rivaling Connor Bedard for that distinction of being the best prospect in this draft class, and I think he'll end up, if he slides in the draft, for example, like he'll end up being a higher rated player down the road on a redraft. I just think some teams are going to be a little bit leery of taking him because of the Russian factor and the fact they're going to have to wait so long. But he has had a really good season. And Chicago, to me, is a perfect team that can wait. They seem like they have a long-term 4 or 5 year rebuild plan where they're not planning to be good for a while. I don't think they'd have any issues waiting 2 or 3 years for him to make the jump before they're ready to have him have an impact on their franchise. At 4th overall, we have the Anaheim Ducks. The Ducks might get lucky here, and at least in their opinion, and draft Leo Carlsson, the Swedish prospect here, who was by some people considered the 2nd best or 3rd best prospect in this draft. But of course, like I said, Michkov here is the wild card, given his Russian status and the fact he's staying in the KHL for a while. Could impact where we see him go, which will impact players like possibly Carlsson or Fantilli. But again, he had a terrific year in the SHL, putting up 25 points in 44 games. Had a solid showing in the World Junior Tournament for Sweden. Only scored 3 goals, but they were huge goals as well. Again, a solid, game-changing top 6 forward for any franchise, and he could join a nice young group of solid prospects at Anaheim to really push this rebuild further. Selecting 5th overall, we have the Columbus Blue Jackets. I have them taking the top center of the draft, Will Smith, who's committed to attending Boston College. So, again, a player that will be going through the college rankings, and will have to wait 1 or 2 seasons for him to turn pro. But Smith, who's listed as 6 feet tall, 172 pounds, just over 18 years of age, is likely going to be the top center of this draft, at least the first one off the board. Had a big year for the U.S. National Team Development Program this year. Right now, it's really highly rated. Columbus is really thin down the middle, long-term as well as short-term in that prognosis, and Will Smith could be a huge part of fixing that down the road once he's ready to turn pro. For 6, we have the San Jose Sharks, and I have them selecting another very talented forward here, Zach Benson. Of course, Zach Benson of the Winnipeg Ice in the Western Hockey League. Smaller forward, 5'10", 160, certainly needs to add some muscle, but he's had a huge year in Winnipeg. That Winnipeg Ice team has a lot of really solid prospects here that'll be interesting to see how they all turn out down the road, but he's put up 98 points in 60 games this year, so he's had a tremendous season. A very highly skilled forward who can play a variety of forward positions. He can play wing or center. I'm not quite sure exactly what he's going to turn out to be at this point. Until he gets stronger, I think he would project to be more as a winger, but he could be a terrific offensive pickup here for the San Jose Sharks at this selection. Number 7, we have the Arizona Coyotes, and I have them taking Slovakian-born centerman Dalibor Dvorsky, who in my opinion is arguably the 2nd best center of the draft. He was listed as 6'1", 200 pounds, so he certainly has good size and strength to make the jump to the NHL in the relatively near future. Obviously had himself a pretty good season playing in Europe as well as the World Juniors as well for Slovakia, putting up 3 points in 5 games. Overall, this is a player who could be in a variety of spots. I think I could see him going anywhere as high as maybe 6'7". It could drop down as closer to 10, but he's an excellent forward. The Coyotes need a variety of things, in my opinion, like the Blackhawks don't seem to be in any kind of hurry to get through this rebuild, and he could be a good piece that could take his time, maybe spend another year in Europe before he makes the jump to the NHL. At number 8, we have the Philadelphia Flyers. I have them taking another really talented offensive player here, Andrew Crystal, good buddies of Connor Bedard from Kelowna, the Western Hockey League, a left winger, 5'10", 165. Again, like some of these other guys we talked about, like Benson, for example, a player who needs to get a little bit stronger and add a little bit of muscle to be more successful at the NHL. But Crystal, to me, is an underrated player who would be getting a lot more acknowledgement over his skills if it wasn't for some of the few players drafted or ranked ahead of him that will be drafted a little bit higher. But he had a tremendous year for the Rockets in the WHL, putting up 95 points, including 39 goals in just 54 games. And a solid showing in the Canada U18 Hlinka Gretzky Cup as well at his last go-around. So to me, this is a player who's, I think, going to get a lot of attention from a new GM like Danny Briere, who's not a huge guy himself. I think he'll be a GM that would appreciate the dynamic offensive player, even though he's a little bit smaller, and could be a huge help to the Flyers in a couple of years when he's ready to go. At 9 overall, we have the Washington Capitals. It's kind of odd to see them selecting here, but I have them taking Edward Šale, obviously right winger from the Czech Republic, 6'1", 168 pounds, had a real solid World Junior Tournament. It was a really big eye-opener for some people, getting himself a little bit more recognition on the international stage. Had a solid season playing in Czechia as well. And to me, this is a player who is going to be very interesting to the Capitals. I think they've had a good success with a lot of European-born players. And based on where they're picking here and where they're at in the draft, I think they can get a player in Šale who could be helpful to them in a variety of situations. I think his ceiling is going to be fairly high, and I have a lot of hopes that he's going to end up outproducing where he's ranked here in the draft. At number 10, we have the St. Louis Blues, another team that hasn't picked this high in a while, but I have them taking from Moose Jaw to WHL, Brayden Yager, who's listed as 6 feet tall, 165. Another guy needs to add some more muscle to his frame, but a real solid playmaking centerman, 78 points in 67 games this year for Moose Jaw. Obviously a player that I think is going to be debatable where he goes. I think this is a good pick for St. Louis. Obviously, they're kind of retooling right now. He could be a good help for them in a not too distant future, but I could even maybe see them going in a different direction, maybe grabbing a defenseman like a C&D Pellica or something with this pick. When you start getting to this point in the draft, to me, those players ranked between 10 and 20, there's a lot of similarities depending on what the team wants, and they could go in a variety of directions. But for me, I think Yager makes good sense here for the Blues at this point. So that is the draft lottery simulation. Those are my top 10 picks. Let me know your thoughts on the players. Who you think needs to draft first overall the most. Obviously, the Bedard sweepstakes are quite high. A lot of teams have clearly been tanking, and obviously, and whoever gets lucky and fortunate enough to draft him is going to have a major positive impact and possibly franchise-altering draft selection here. So let me know your thoughts on that. We'll discuss in the comments. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with everything you need to know regarding the 2023 NHL Draft, as well as all the other news and rumors from around the entire league covering all 32 teams. Thank you for watching. Now we'll catch you next time.